Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and this channel is predominantly all about hand sewing. But today I've got a bit of a different video for you. Today is a product review of this incredible machine, which is the Auto Heat Press from HTVront. You might be thinking, what has an auto heat press got to do with patchwork and quilting? Well, that's what I'm going to show you today. When HTVront got in touch with me and asked me to try out some of their products for heat transfer vinyl, I was interested because I've never tried heat transfer vinyl before. But when I saw the auto heat press, I thought, this is excellent for patchwork and quilting. I could straight away think of lots of uses for it, and as well as show you the heat transfer vinyl side of things today, I am going to show you all of the uses that I have thought of for this machine for patchwork and quilting. And I'll let you into a spoiler now. I think that it is excellent if you have any mobility issues or any injuries around your wrists, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I also think it's really great for speeding up your process. And I'm going to explain all of that in today's video. So when HTVront got in touch with me, I was actually piecing some blocks for a quilt, and a couple of months before that I injured my wrist doing a mosaic class and using the tile cutters to cut the mosaic tiles. And even the action of just lifting up my iron and putting it down was putting a strain on my wrist, even though I have the Oliso iron, which you don't need to turn up and down, you just place it on and lift it off. I felt this pain across my wrist. Also, one of the problems that I quite often find I have is that when I've pressed my units or my blocks, they don't lie particularly flat. So I've been using a clapper to help them lie flat, but you can't use that on a big surface area very easily, and it takes time, you can't do many at once. When I saw the auto heat press, straight away I thought this could be great, it will apply more pressure, perhaps the blocks will be flatter, and also you can do more at once. You don't have to just do one at a time. And I'm going to go through all of that in today's video. So a huge thank you to HTVront for sending me their auto heat press machine, and I really hope that you're going to enjoy today's review. So as well as the auto heat press, they very kindly sent me some weeding tools which are essential for working with vinyl, along with some heat transfer vinyl to make today's project, and it's Christmas themed, so we've got a nice black and white check and a red and black check. And because you need to cut the vinyl on a cutting machine, they sent me some cutting mats as well, which came with a nice little scrapey tool. So before we get started with the vinyl, let's have a look at the auto heat press itself. It's a large and heavy machine, so you do need a decent amount of space to use it. However, the size of it is actually a plus point in my opinion, because it means you've got a large surface area to work with, and you'll see as we go along how that really is an advantage. I like how it has a pull-out drawer and the heating element is underneath, so it's not exposed, which dramatically reduces any risk of getting burnt. So to test the vinyl, I wanted to make some stockings, so I bought 3 plain linen stockings from Hobbycraft, which were only £1 each, which makes this project really affordable. So I have a Cricut machine and I chose a design on the Cricut design space. HTVront also make cutting machines, so if you don't have a Cricut you can use one of their machines, but you need to cut your vinyl to the right size and then apply it to your cutting mat and then cut it out on whichever cutting machine you have. You could also use scissors to cut out a design. You don't have to have a cutting machine, but you get a more accurate design with a cutting machine. Now the design I chose was quite an intricate bauble design which looked like patchwork blocks, that's why I chose it. And you put the vinyl with the carrier sheet face down on the sticky mat, so you can then peel back the part of the vinyl that you don't need for your design, and it just leaves the cutout on the mat. You can see here how the weeding tool will be really necessary when it comes to particularly a design like this, which is a really intricate design, so I'm just cleaning up around the edges. But this was my first attempt at using vinyl and it just went really well. It was very easy and also really fun. So once you have removed all of the excess part of the vinyl and you've just got your design left, you can then peel it off your mat. Now you'll notice I have Merry Christmas on there. That was part of the design, but I actually decided not to put that on this stocking. So I'm cutting it off now, and I'm just using a rotary cutter just to cut around it to separate the baubles so I can position them on the stocking. Now once you have everything positioned where you want it to be, it is time to switch on the heat press. It's really easy to set the heat press up. You just press the on button and then you can set the temperature and the time. And the time is the length of time it will press your item before it will then raise up. So I have mine set to 150 degrees centigrade for 15 seconds. And you just need to wait a few minutes for it to heat up. It actually does heat up quite quickly, and then you're ready to go. So when you're ready to press your item, you pull out that tray, that drawer if you like, place your item on, making sure it is centrally on the pad, on the heat pad, and it's not hanging off the edge. And then in this case, I put the Teflon sheet that came with the heat press over the top just to make sure nothing was going to touch the element and that it would be absolutely safe to press. All you do then is carefully push it in and push it back so it clicks into place, and then press the R button and it automatically moves down to press your piece. Now you can have the machine set up so that when you click that drawer back into place it just goes straight down, but I like having the control of pressing the R button when I'm sure everything is ready. And once the time is up, it then automatically raises so you can pull it out and check to see if your piece has worked. So in this case it all worked perfectly, and then all I needed to do was peel off that carrier sheet to reveal the vinyl stuck to the stocking. For a first attempt I was really impressed with how this came out. There were no visible mistakes that I could see. It just stuck to the fabric really nicely, and yeah, it looks great. So now what I wanted to do was add some trim that I bought again from Hobbycraft for just a few pounds, this felt holly trim, to add that to the top of the stocking. Just stick it on with a glue gun, really quick and simple. You could stitch it on, and then a bit of ribbon, and it made a lovely stocking. Now of course one stocking just wasn't enough. I was having so much fun and I wanted to try the red and black vinyl, so I chose this ho 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 design where the O is a bauble with some cutouts in it, and I made this stocking, but there are 3 of us in our household, so I had to make a third stocking as well. So I chose this lovely cottagecore Merry Christmas, and again it just cut out and stuck on beautifully, and it was so quick and fun to make. And when I hung them all up on our banisters with some homemade bunting that I'd made years ago, I thought they really looked lovely. I hung them on some chunky rick-rack, which again just adds that handmade charm. And I just think that this was a really great project. My little boy was very excited to see them, and I thoroughly recommend having a go at heat transfer vinyl if you've never tried it before. It's not as hard as you might think. I thought it might be a bit more difficult, but I had success with it straight away, and yeah, a really great project. So now let's talk about how we can use the heat press for patchwork and quilting and sewing in general. So the first thing that came to my mind was when you want to remove the papers from your EPP shapes, from hexagons in this case, then pressing your piece on the auto press will be really nice and easy, and you could put more than one hexagon flower in at a time. So I'm just putting one in at the moment, but you've got a large surface area there, so you could put a lot in. I had it set at 110 degrees centigrade for 10 seconds, and this was just right to press the piece really nicely, which then makes it very easy to remove your papers. So once removing the papers, you do need to fiddle around with your seam allowances a bit to make sure they're tucked under, and it's always a good idea to give your piece another press. So I put the machine on again, this time just for 5 seconds, and I put the piece under again just to give it that final press, this time without the papers in it. And again, it worked brilliantly, and you can just imagine doing this with more than one hexagon flower at once. It's going to save you lots of time, and you don't need to put the clapper on. It all came out really nice and flat. Now, if you then want to applique your hexagon flower to a backing fabric, you can apply some heat and bond or thermo bond to the underside of your hexagon flower and use the press to do that. And the advantage of this over an iron is you get a really nice even spread of heat, and you're not going to miss any spots because you don't have to move your iron around. All you need to do then, when it is stuck to the back of it, is remove the backing paper, position it onto your backing fabric, and press it again to stick it to your backing fabric. You can then stitch it down by hand or machine, whatever you prefer. Now, in keeping with the same topic of applying fusibles to fabric, I found the auto heat press to be absolutely brilliant for this. And I'm going to show you now how I applied some fabric to double-sided fusible foam, the same foam that I use in my house sewing case that I've been working on the pattern for. So this foam is about 1/4 of an inch thick. You can see I've got some creased felt there that I want to apply to one side of the foam, and I'm going to apply quilting cotton to the other side of the foam. And the advantage of doing it in the heat press is that you can cover such a large surface area at once. One of the things that tends to happen when you do this with an iron is it's very easy to miss spots. No matter how careful you are at moving along systematically with your iron, it's really easy to miss certain bits. But with the heat press, it's actually a 15-inch square surface area that you've got there on the heat press, which means you can press things that are rather large, and it just works brilliantly for this. Now you can see I didn't use any Teflon sheets when I was using the fabric. I used that with the vinyl, but you're absolutely fine to just press it like this. And again, I'm using 110 degrees centigrade for 10 seconds. And if you find it hasn't quite stuck, you can always put it back in for 5 more seconds, 10 more seconds. It is a bit of trial and error to find out what works. But you can see it comes out really nicely, really flat, and everything is stuck together. Now I flipped it over to do the felt side of things, and I did put the Teflon sheet on this time, just because when we're working with wool felt, we have to be a bit careful that we don't scorch it. But again, this worked really brilliantly. Now, if you look at other heat presses on the market, you will notice that some of them swing upwards to expose the heated element. This one, I love how it's all contained, and the top of the plastic here, yes, it's warm, but it isn't going to burn you. And actually, by this point, it had the machine on for about an hour, and it was not hot to touch at all. It gets warm underneath, but you're not going to burn yourself if you touch that part. If you did put your hand in and touch the heating element, then yes, you would burn yourself. But I love the way that this heating element is contained within. It's not hot to touch on the outside, which was a real selling point for me because I have a young son and I feel like he would be safe being in the room with me when this is on. Now let's move on to how we can use it for our piecing. So I'm chain piecing some half square triangles here to give you an idea of how you can use the heat press to really speed up your quilting process. So not only is it really great if you do have some dexterity and mobility issues or injuries, as I mentioned before, but if you don't have any of those things and you just want to speed up the pressing part of the process of making a patchwork quilt, then I find the heat press to be brilliant for this. So let's set the scene. You're chain piecing your half square triangle blocks, as I am here, and you want to do as many as you can at once. And here they all are ready to be separated, and I really like using this little clover cutting tool that you can put a rotary cutter blade in to separate them. Now, once they're all ready, you have a nice big area here to press them to set the seams, and that's what I've done here. And then I just finger press them to open them up, ready to then press them open with the seam allowance to one side. You can see here how I'm doing quite a lot at once. I can't remember how many there are. I think there might be 9 or 10, all at once. Now this would take a lot longer if you were doing this with an iron and using a clapper. It would also put some strain onto your wrists. But you can see that they came out pretty flat. There are a couple sticking up at the back, but it might just be that I need to have them pressed for a little bit longer than the 10 seconds that I've got it set to. But I was actually really pleased with how these came out, and you'll see as I put the block together how flat everything was, and I think it also really helped with accuracy. So I'm putting them back in for 10 more seconds just to get them really flat, and I didn't use any starch here. You could do that, of course, if you want to, but they came out really nicely. And I actually decided to turn them over and press them at the back as well. And again, doing all of this, I think, ended up being a lot quicker than it would be doing them all with an iron and a clapper. Even though I did decide to press them on the auto press 3 times, I still think it turned out quicker and flatter. The beauty of using a press to press your pieces is you won't distort the fabric as you could do with an iron. So I then joined them together on the machine into rows of 3, as you can see here. Now, this for me was a really great advantage because one thing I always forget is which way to press my seams when I have them in rows. But because I could lay them out on the auto press, I could see which way my seams needed to go, and I could make sure the machine was going to press them in the correct direction. And then it was really easy for me to keep track of this for sewing them together into the final block. So I could see the top would be pressed to the left, the middle to the right, the bottom to the left, and it's all there visually in front of me, which just kept everything nice and neat and orderly. And I really like how they came out. Pretty good, really. I think there was one little bit that just needed a bit of an adjustment, but again, this was my first time using the machine for this purpose, so with a little bit of practice I'm sure that will get even better. So here is the block all sewn together, and I was trying to decide, did I want to press the seams open or press them to the top or to the bottom, and I decided to go for pressing them down and pressing them up. I think that is a bit easier. I think pressing them open you would need to maybe run a seam roller over it or press it a little bit more with fingers. Maybe that's one instance when an iron is a little bit easier to use, but when you're pressing your seams to one side or the other, then the heat press is brilliant for this. And you can just see how I actually did make a little mistake in the sewing where one of them is flipped the wrong way, but again I think it's just going to come down to practice. I was actually really pleased with how it turned out. It's pretty flat and pretty good by my standards. So I think that this machine is really great, and you can see how I am pressing my blocks here with the large surface area being 15 inches square. It's really great that you can press your blocks once they're all together. You can press up to, about a 14-inch block here, which is just brilliant. So that's it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Something a little bit different than my usual videos, but I was so excited about this machine and all of the uses that you can get from it for patchwork and quilting and sewing in general, and I really wanted to share that with you. If you'd like to see more about the auto heat press, there are some links in the description box where you can go and find out a little bit more about it. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think I'm going to move it to there and still have my iron, because I do think there is still a need for an iron in the sewing room when it comes to patchwork and quilting. But I do think that this machine is super useful, and I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it, particularly I think for making quilt blocks and pressing all of those units at once. I'm really excited about that and about it speeding up my process, because I think it is well known that I am pretty slow when it comes to making things, and I'm never in a rush. I don't want to whiz through everything, but I would like to get a little bit faster, and I think that this machine is going to be really useful for that. So if you have any questions about the machine, or you want to tell me what you think you would use it for, let me know in the comments. Have you ever tried one? Have you done heat transfer vinyl before? If you have, tell me your experiences in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. So I'd just like to say a really big thank you to HTVront for sending me this wonderful machine and all of the vinyl and the tools and everything that I needed. It's been a pleasure to test this machine out, and I'm really excited to use it going forward. A massive thank you to the patrons of this channel who are supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you to anybody who has pressed the super thanks button. It's really, really appreciated. And take care of yourselves. I hope you're enjoying December, and I'll see you really soon with another video. Bye bye.